Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PackUp's latest webinar, Plastic Reduction Packaging Innovations. My name is Paul Jenkins. I'm Managing Director of the PackUp. And here is what we're going to discuss over the next hour. So, very quick introduction about the PackUp and who we are. We've got 20 plastic reduction packaging innovations to show you today from our Innovation Zone platform. We're going to spread those over 2 sessions. So we'll do the first 10 in the first session. And in between those 2 sessions, we have an expert interview with not one, but 2 experts in this space from Stanley Mitchell from Xampla and James Nelson from 2M Group of Companies. So we'll be discussing various innovations and ideas and the like from those 2 shortly. We'll then cover off some more plastic reduction packaging innovations and then have our Q&A session towards the end. And then we'll finish with details of our next event. So as always, please get your questions in. Really important for the Q&A. You would see a section, I think we're all familiar with Zoom webinars now. There's a section where you can put in your questions, and we'll be delighted to try and answer them for you at the end of the session. You will get a link to view this webinar shortly after the event, which will be tomorrow. All our content is available on our YouTube channel, and please follow us on LinkedIn, which is @ThePackUp. So a little bit about the PackUp. We're a leading packaging innovation consultancy. I know we've got lots of people online that are quite familiar with us, but for some that are new to the business, we offer 4 areas of service: technical support and project management, events, both obviously webinars, online webinars, but also in-person events. We do reports. Our latest report is on packaging startups 2024, and that will be out in December. And we have our Innovation Zone platform. So this is a leading resource to keep up to speed with all the latest packaging innovations. We're tracking we've tracked over 7,700 packaging initiatives over the last 7 or 8 years or so, 25 new innovations a week. We'll be shortly increasing that by about 10 or 15%. So getting even more innovations onto the platform. Really useful from concept to in-market launch. Very much a global view, so we're tracking innovations from many countries around the world. So a really good way of keeping inspired and very good for sort of idea generation and really for just keeping packaging teams up to speed. So let's get straight into some packaging innovations from the PackUp Innovation Zone. So these are all plastic reduction strategies that we tracked in our platform. So the first one is a UK supermarket, Sainsbury's, and they've moved from plastic to paper on all of its own brand toilet and kitchen roll packaging, saving over 55 million pieces of plastic, reportedly the equivalent of 485 tonnes annually. It is reported as the biggest single plastics reduction across Sainsbury's grocery business so far. Obviously, a lot of businesses are working towards getting a lot of non-recyclable plastic packaging out of their supply chain in readiness for the Plastic Pact, which comes into play by 2025. The new fully recyclable packaging will help customers cut down on plastic and recycle more at home. The move to paper means that Sainsbury's has become, they're reporting, the first UK retailer to switch its own brand toilet paper and kitchen towel ranges from plastic to paper packaging, although we have tracked quite a few examples, possibly 10 to 15 across Europe and North America in this space. The new packaging will launch across 27 products. I think that's the sort of that's the significant thing, which is achieving the 485 tonnes of reduction, with customers starting to see the change in store and online pretty much from now. The paper packaging will have been rolled out on all the lines by February next year and can be easily recycled in UK homes through curbside recycling. Next up is from Greece, and we have some Greek scientists that have announced that they have developed edible cheese packaging made from whey protein and algae spirulina. Edible films can improve the organoleptic and nutritional attributes of cheese, either due to its film coating composition or due to its ability to incorporate active ingredients which can then be consumed with the coating. Researchers from the Laboratory of Food Chemistry, University of Greece, used whey protein to produce edible films combined with commercial spirulina powder added at varying concentrations. The physiochemical, mechanical, and antioxidant properties, along with the optical parameters of the film, were evaluated. The main objective of the research was to assess the possibility of using whey protein films with better properties as packaging material for cheese. They found that protein films containing 2% spirulina could be consumed with some cheese products and constitute a functional food by increasing the protein value and maintaining the nutritional value of the cheese. Next up, we have 2 or 3 innovations from Mondi today, and the first one is in collaboration with British rice brand VT to launch the country's first paper-based packaging for dry rice. VT's new rice packaging has been created using Mondi's functional barrier paper solution. We've seen plenty of examples of that in market, providing a safe, secure, and strong alternative to the industry standard plastic packs that we're all very familiar with. Created using Mondi's recyclable functional barrier paper, the new packaging was developed for VT's rice range. The 2 companies collaborated closely in the entire creation process. As with all food products, the barrier properties for the packaging needed to be suitable for the contents, in this case providing protection against moisture and ensuring a long shelf life. Trials were carried out to ensure the result was a solution that worked on all counts while supporting VT's mission to reduce plastic. The new packs have been certified by OPRL, on pack recycling label, as widely accepted for curbside recycling in the UK. Next up, and you might have seen quite a bit of this in social media or in the news recently. So this is, refill is also a plastic reduction strategy, because you clearly will use less plastic in the whole process. So what we have here is from Abel & Cole. So refillable milk packaging has traditionally been associated with glass bottles due to the ease of sterilisation and cost efficiency. But glass's fragility and weight has led to the adoption of recyclable single-use HDPE plastic containers across many markets, driven by cost savings and retailer convenience. Whilst this shift made sense economically, it resulted in significant single-use plastic. It also necessitated cost-specialised equipment for dairies, making the transition back to glass prohibitively expensive. So this is where UK-based Cup Zero came along with their refillable milk initiative from Abel & Cole, and this challenges the notion that plastic is inherently detrimental to the environment. Their packaging, constructed from 100% polypropylene, offers a sustainable alternative and following multiple refills and complete recyclability. By reusing these bottles just 4 times, apparently, they claim to reduce the carbon footprint by half compared to glass bottles, saving substantial quantities of plastic and carbon emissions each year. Abel & Cole are calling on UK retailers and the dairy industry to get in touch with them to make this a widespread reality. So I posted that, I think, last week or the week before on LinkedIn, and got a lot of comments and a lot of likes and a lot of impressions. So that really has struck a chord with many people. Next, again, we have Mondi with another paper solution. So paper stretch wrap, we're seeing a few examples in market, possibly 4, maybe 5 different businesses are playing in this area. So they're working with Italian pallet wrapping specialist Robopack to develop a paper stretch wrapping solution to help phase out plastics in pallet wrapping applications. Robopack's new packaging wrapping machine is compatible with Mondi's Advantage stretch wrap, made it entirely from craft paper, and claims to offer high strength, puncture resistance, and tension absorption in pallet wrapping applications. Mondi states that it uses responsibly sourced renewable materials to create the paper, which does not feature plastic or coatings and is thus thought to be fully recyclable in existing European waste streams. The companies claim that each reel of paper can wrap up to 750 pallets. According to an independent life cycle assessment, the material lowers greenhouse gases emissions by 62% compared to virgin plastic stretch film and by 49% when compared to plastic stretch film made with 50% recycled content. Next, we have a Finnish manufacturer of lighting solutions, Arum, and they've become one of the market pioneers in the implementation of Papera foam for bicycle lamp packaging. Papera is a paper-based, fully recoverable packaging foam made from cellulose obtained from wood, which is a sustainable alternative to traditional materials such as EPS, which is used in similar applications. This is a Stora Enso solution, and we've seen quite a few Papera examples in the market. Stora Enso say that it's not only protects sensitive items during transport, but also helps users implement the principles of sustainable developments in practice, as it can be recycled, just like paper. The company adds that the wood used in Papera foam comes from sustainably managed forests, further emphasizing its environmental aspect. According to Stora Enso, by choosing this solution in the production of packaging, every brand owner has the opportunity to actively participate in reducing plastics. Next, we go to Holland with Utrecht-based Plus Supermarket, and they've announced that it is replacing the plastic underlays for its meat products with a paper-based versions. Again, we've seen quite a few examples in the meat and protein sectors where sort of paper is replacing plastic. So what we have here is Pure Van Smack, and their vegetarian meat product range will be packed with a cardboard underlay instead of plastic. This move will reduce the amount of plastic per pack by a reported 60%, which the company says is equivalent of 225,000 kilos of plastic per annum. The sustainability step will be rolled out from about now, mid-October, and a spokesperson for Plus said that they continuously check whether products can be sold without packaging. That's their first priority. And for products like meat, that's very difficult. So if that's not possible, they look at whether packaging can be smaller, lighter, or thinner, and whether packaging without plastic is possible. So plastic reduction is a part of the strategy, but it comes after weight reduction and thinner and lighter. This is the case, obviously, for Pure Taste meat products, and moving to cardboard underlays apparently makes no difference to the quality of the product. London-based Kit & Kin offers families a range of award-winning cleaning products. The company has launched a range of plant-based eco-cleaning products stored in refillable bottles with refill pouches that can be returned for recycling. The products were developed in collaboration with designers, B&B, also based in London. Kit & Kin's 12 products include a range of things like hand wash, surface cleaner, glass and mirror cleaner. Each claims to be non-toxic, thus protecting the consumer, their homes and the environment. With the new range, consumers can reuse the refillable bottle and recycle it at the end of life. Empty refill bottles can be sent back to Kit & Kin at no extra cost to the consumer, where it will be recycled in a specialist process. A partnership between Kavaris Flexibles Germany and Briegel and Bergmeister Austria has resulted in the launch of Paper Barrier Seal. This fully recyclable, sustainably sourced packaging material, the companies say, offers the same functionality and product safety as existing plastic packaging. Thanks to its unique paper coating, the material enables sealability whilst remaining fully recyclable in existing paper streams. Additionally, the solution ensures comparable production efficiencies as packaging solutions. Suggested uses for Paper Barrier Seal include items such as dried foods, cereal, sugar, chocolate, confectionery, crisps, snacks and nuts, bakery, tea, coffee, spices, and tobacco. The last innovation before we speak to our experts is from Blue Ocean Closures. Now, we've been tracking this company for quite a while, and they've been coming up with a few in development initiatives for the innovation zone. So they're working with Coca-Cola's EMEA R&D Centre in Brussels to develop a fibre-based screw closure or cap that is bio-based, FSC certified and recyclable like paper. A spokesperson for Blue Ocean said that the company, to succeed with this pioneering step away from fossil-based plastics, it is extremely important to have global brands on board with the ambition and ability to make a difference. In line with its ambitions to promote sustainable packaging while reducing the use of non-renewable materials and supporting its ambitious World Without Waste strategy, Coca-Cola joins Blue Ocean Closures' community of pioneering partners. A spokesperson for Coca-Cola said that they were excited to be part of this community and to help test and develop this innovation as it continues to evolve. So don't expect to see this on supermarket shelves anytime soon, I suspect, but this is a medium to long-term development, and hopefully I'll be reporting on further progress at some point soon. Okay, so that was the first 10 innovations. Stan and James, if you can unmute and put your cameras on, fantastic. Brilliant. So, right, I would love to introduce you to Stan Mitchell. He's Head of Business Development at natural materials expert Xampla. And I'm also joined by James Nelson, who is Business Development Manager at 2M Group of Companies. So, gentlemen, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Really delighted to have you on board. So obviously we're going to continue this plastic reductions theme and find out a bit more about your companies and your products. So first of all, Stan, could you just introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about yourself and Morro Materials?
Absolutely. So I'm Stan, as you said, Head of Business Development at Xampla, but like most of the company, I have a background in biotechnology and life sciences from a range of industries that we draw from. And what we make at Xampla is a really new class of natural polymer. And I think we'll probably get into the importance of that classification. But quickly for the audience, what we call Morro materials that we're bringing to the market at the moment are a very different kind of natural polymer to a lot of things you might have previously had some chance to use or seen on the market. So we're not a starch, we're not a lipid-based system, we're a protein-based technology. And that means that Morro materials are able to offer some really high performance replacements to some of the most polluting forms of single use and specialty polymer out there.
Excellent, Stan. Thank you very much for your introduction. So James, over to you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and what your company does?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. So I'm James Nelson, Business Development for 2M Group of Companies. I've been with the company about 2 years, but I've spent my career pretty much in the packaging industry, both working for brand owners and manufacturers. And I'm really helping the company at the moment try and shape a direction for us for the future where we can transition our portfolio to more sustainable alternative technologies, which cover our whole range of industries. So just a bit about 2M itself. It's a holding group of companies anchored really in the material and life science industry. So we sell pretty much all chemicals that really go into a range of products that cover those industry segments. We have an industrial business which is focused on anything that goes into adhesives, coatings, elastomers, plasticizers, the whole spectrum of ingredients that go there. And then we have a brand facing side of the business, Surfachem, which really would supply any commodity chemicals that go into personal care formulations and developments. So a very broad, diverse portfolio of things, really, but really trying to help us shape our sustainability strategy going forward. So that's my role currently.
Excellent, James. Thank you very much for that. So I'm going to start with you, James, if I may. So as a supplier to the chemicals industry, do you see much change in the supply chain in response to sustainability? Nice easy one.
Yeah, it's It's a great question. There's probably a very long answer to it, but I think the simple one is yes. I think the industry itself is going to go through a process of change for sure over the next years. We've already seen legislation play a massive role in the packaging industry, and I think legislation is also going to play a massive role in the chemical industry as we, being a sort of service provider that supplies into the packaging industry indirectly in the terms of coatings, inks, varnishes, etc. We've seen a huge transformation start, but also is going to, I think, gather more pace. So lots of companies in the industry working on various options around sustainability in general. So reduction of scope 1 and 2 emissions, focusing on alternative energy sources, mass balance approaches to get a more, let's say, carbon beneficial portfolio of products. And then obviously a big ramp up as well in some of the more classified biopolymers itself. So polymers made from bio-based feedstocks and the like, feeding the way into the industry. So there's absolutely a number of things that are being taken. It's going to take a long time to transition and to really build that toolbox that will enable sustainable packaging development in the future, because we're still about 90% plus of the industry is reliant on fossil-based chemicals. So sustainable products, sustainable development, definitely the building blocks of the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much, James. So that leads quite nicely, really, to ask Stan about what really interested to find out a bit more about Morro Materials, and what are your biggest challenges for Xampla and Morro Materials?
Yeah, so it's really interesting to be in this sort of conversation and to have a chance to speak around alongside someone like you, James, obviously coming from the industry, because I think a lot of what you touched on there feeds really well into what we experience when we're talking about barriers for novel materials. And a big part of that is that it's just such a complex space. James was reading off there, carbon accounting, things about end of life management, things about biomaterials, sourcing, feedstock sustainability, end of life, etc. And I think actually for very innovative new natural polymers like the ones we produce at Xampla that we sell as Morro Materials, a really big hurdle to us is the degree of confusion and frankly the degree of greenwashing that does go on in the industry. And it's understandable why it becomes confusing, because a category like biomaterials captures everything from bio-PET, which for all intents and purposes at end of life is a synthetic, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where Morro Materials live, which are natural polymers, chemically unaltered natural materials, which actually biodegrade very readily and with very good end of life, but are also quite different sometimes or handle and function in different ways to traditional synthetic materials. And actually a lot of what we have to work through with clients and with prospects, Paul, is getting through that discussion about what do we mean by sustainable, what do we mean by biodegradable, and to make very clear that when we're talking about Morro Materials, we're not talking about something with chemical modification. And when we therefore talk about biodegradability and end of life, we mean biodegradability, whether it's in freshwater, the marine environment, soil, or of course, any kind of home or industrial composting. We're not playing the game of some biomaterials in the past of claiming biodegradability when what we actually mean is quite a carefully managed end of life scenario. And breaking through that really is one of our biggest challenges, as well as actually coming to understand how people like James in the industry see the landscape and how we can present and develop really impactful solutions for them.
Excellent. Well, why don't we ask James? So what are 2M's ambitions in terms of, sustainable chemistry? And sort of double-edged question, really. What are 2M, why is 2M interested in this? So what are your ambitions and why, I guess?
Yeah, well, I think like most companies, we're embarking on our sustainability journey, and it is very much a journey. The industry itself is still very, very reliant on petrochemical feedstocks as an input to it, and the transformation is going to take time. There's a huge legacy of infrastructure investment other things which you know, are going to make that transition process a longer journey. But as part of our sustainability working group within 2M, we're also working on you know, a strategy where across our portfolio we have lots of interesting materials that can, you know, have cross-functional purposes. So there's chemistries that we can find in personal care, for example, that have application potentials in other areas. So we're working on a product portfolio strategy review that will allow us to help our customers transition to more sustainable alternatives in the future. Because ultimately, I think considering where we sit in the supply chain, we're a feeder that goes into the industry that would make coatings, inks, adhesives. You know, Stan's talked about end of life compostability. These are all important things that are going to influence those factors when you look at combinations of materials and things. So our approach really is to try and help our customers achieve some of their sustainability goals by working on an R&D and a portfolio strategy that's going to give us a toolbox of options to help our customers you know, achieve the net zero goals and the targets and the things that are going to drive change in the industry. So I'll give you an example. You know, biosolvents for the print industry is one of the things we've started. Lots of commodity solvents, commodity items, you know, that are currently used in the coatings industry particularly, I think technology-wise haven't really changed for a very long time, and they're still actually a big contributing source of plastic as well. So, you know, starting at least on more sustainable carbon-friendly solvents as a portfolio, and then working on portfolio replacement over time to feed into that space and help companies then build compostability into the products, using the mantra of safe, sustainable by design, which I think is what's really being pushed now through the chemical industry, particularly as we look forward.
And if I could just jump in there, Paul, actually, it's really interesting to hear that perspective from you, James, about the role of companies like 2M in bringing together a toolbox. Because I think one thing, probably a few people in the audience have heard quite a lot of green materials or green startups, you know, talk about their solution like it's going to solve the whole problem. But I think we're very conscious at Xampla that Morro materials are developed to replace very specific kinds of plastic. And there's a very wide range of chemistry beyond polymers into other kinds of things like synthetic coatings or solvents, as James was talking about. And really creating impactful solutions is going to require a combination of those. And in part, it's about understanding how things like Morro coating, which is used for barrier functionality on things like food service, paper products, or things like Morro microencapsulates can directly displace plastics. But I think there's also a lot of potential here for companies like 2M, other companies already in the chemicals industry, to bring together all the different new technologies that are entering the market and find really exciting ways of combining them together. So, for example, thinking about how something like a Morro soluble film, like the image that's shown here, could be combined with other new chemical innovations inside the product or in the secondary or tertiary packaging to create something really, really novel and actually go a bit beyond what traditionally was possible with synthetic solutions.
Excellent, Stan. So we've talked a lot, or you talked a lot about Morro materials. I'm quite keen to sort of find what applications have been tried or tested to date. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So films is a good place to start. They're probably the most visual and most recognizable thing that we make, because Morro materials are really intended for replacing specialty polymers. So Morro soluble films were developed as a natural polymer alternative to materials like PVOH, so for soluble films on home care or cosmetics products. But again, just as I was talking about, this is a really good example of how, when you start to think differently about what kinds of materials you use, some very, very different product applications are opened up. So because we work with chemically unaltered plant protein, if we use a food grade protein as an input, it's quite possible to make these soluble films, but have them as an edible material instead. And if anyone in the audience here is a Gusto user, you might have had a chance to eat some of the Morro edible soluble films earlier this year, which we sold in as a wrapper for a stock cube. So packaging that actually you could eat yourself as a consumer and provide a zero waste solution but also a really, really different kind of consumer experience. And we've rolled that out across a lot of the things that we do with Morro Materials. So just as we originally developed Morro Micro encapsulation technology for things like fragrance or active ingredients in home care or agrochemicals, that same technology, that same chassis can be used to produce the Morro NutriParticles, which are actually a mechanism to deliver some really interesting nutrient fortification and enteric release benefits in things like soft drinks, where we've worked very closely with Britvic in the UK to develop some of those solutions.
Excellent. So some really good applications there. Really, really good. So, James, you mentioned about 2M being a multinational company. Are your challenges purely from a European phenomenon, or is it broader and wider than that?
Well, I think the industry in general, obviously, we represent a number of major manufacturers, major chemical principals. So we supply and distribute products for them, and they typically have an international footprint. So, a lot of companies will be driven by what their strategic goals are around sustainability, and typically we will see approaches and technologies that they develop filter the way down to us. We're a chemical distributor and manufacturer, if you like, in the middle ground area. So we're not a leading big manufacturer like a Dow or a Sun Chemical. We're somebody who sort of works with them and represents in certain territories. And so I think that the time it's going to take for sustainable technologies to filter through is a bit reluctant, a bit reliant. We're a bit reliant on our upstream supply chain, but we're also working, with smaller suppliers and companies to help transition our portfolio. So, sustainability is something hopefully that many people are going to take, many companies are going to take seriously. There's lots of things and areas that I think we can all partake in, not just relating to chemicals and how we use them and how we use them to make packaging, but also, how we use energy, renewable energy sources. We've got some technologies that we're working with some companies on as well on the renewable energy side of things. So sustainability could be a topic we talk about for 20 hours because there's many different facets and directions and things that we could go in with it. But as a general rule, I think it's definitely an international issue, and it's going to be an international approach that's going to help drive it forward.
And I think to follow up on that, it's really interesting to hear that perspective, James, from a bit of a more experienced position. Because again, obviously, we're a UK company. We span out from the University of Cambridge, and a lot of the deployment of Morro Materials and a lot of the direction of that development has been driven obviously by a European regulatory context. But I think just as you're saying, James, what we often find is that although things happen first here, a lot of our clients and partners are very, very interested in using Europe as a bit of a proving ground for these kinds of sustainable new materials, and then rolling them out into other territories once they've achieved a certain scale. I wonder, is that a pattern that you've seen with other innovations in the chemicals industry? It would be interesting to have a bit of a perspective beyond just sort of packaging materials, which we work in.
Yeah, it's a great question, Stan. I think obviously we're quite plugged into a number of the industry associations within the industry. So our chairman and CEO, Marty Kessler, he's chairman of the Chemical Business Association. We work with the BCF, the BPIF, a number of different industries in and around that segment. But obviously, one of the things that governs most of the chemical industry is the REACH process. And for those who aren't aware, it's every chemical that's used in any situation, environment, ingredient, etc., has to go through a classification process. And the REACH process historically has always looked at chemicals based on, their inherent, I'd say, risks or hazards. So if it's a solvent, it's flammable, for example. I think when you look at the impact of the UN sustainability goals and how that's now influencing legislators, particularly in Brussels and other parts of the world, I think absolutely I've heard discussions and I've seen whispers on various forums, but references about taking an approach to REACH where effectively, rather than just looking at the chemical in its entirety as a hazard. It's looking at the life cycle impact of said chemical. So PFAS chemicals I think is one that's quite well documented that, is going to be a challenge. But I think, we're really at the tip of the iceberg. I think there's an awful lot of chemicals, ingredients, constituents that are, if the REACH classification and the relevant bodies decide to go that way, I think he's going to massively change the landscape again in the future. So definitely one to keep an eye on. I think we're at the start of the journey, but I think ultimately taking a more holistic life cycle approach to the way we use materials, ingredients, packaging has got to be the way forward. And it's only going to change packaging if you've got ingredients and materials you can apply to packaging, which will help you get there.
And sorry if I don't want to hijack this one, but I just think that's such an important point, James, about how all parts of that supply chain are going to have to be working together. And one thing that we're very, very focused on with Morro Materials is to ensure that for their applications, these are drop-in solutions that can be processed and handled using the existing capital equipment that's already out there. So I think just as you're hinting at, if tomorrow there's sweeping legislation that changes the landscapes in, say, paper coatings, either you're going to have solutions like Morro coating, or you're going to have a lot of stranded capital equipment. And I think that's something that we often hear from some of our clients and partners, that what they're very focused on is that easy switch over. And it's something that I think more and more materials, not just Morro Materials, as we go forward, are going to be focusing on, to ensure that you can have that compatibility and that smooth switch over from synthetics to more natural or biodegradable solutions.
And Stan, I think quite a lot of people will be listening to what you're doing and want to find out a bit more about the end of life of Morro Materials. What's the scenario for that?
So I think that's a really good point, and it's a really important thing for people to be live to, because as I said, there is a lot of confusion in this space. There has been a lot of greenwashing, and it's also very important to be clear about what Morro Materials are intended for. So our material is not a thermoplastic. It's not intended to replace bulk polymers in, for example, well-recycled materials like plastic water bottles, for example. Really, Morro Materials have been designed to replace specific specialty polymers in very, very highly littered or high environmental leakage risk applications. And that's why we focus on things like, for example, microparticles, which are very, very common in home care products like laundry detergent, for example, but will ultimately just be washed into the watercourses. And therefore, when we're bringing a natural solution to those kinds of materials, it's important for us that we're confident that the biodegradability is sufficient, that even if that water were not to be properly treated and it were to run into a fresh water stream or out into a marine environment, Morro Materials would still degrade within the 30-day standard for biodegradability in those settings. And just the same thing when we talk about, for example, the Morro coatings for paper, that these don't in any way undermine or affect the recyclability or the biodegradability of those materials they're coated onto. And in fact, actually, given the data that we have around soil biodegradability and water biodegradability, we're actually very confident that because Morro Materials are all chemically unaltered natural proteins, they will degrade very effectively, even in very, very uncontrolled ends of life. You're on mute, Paul, if you're saying something.
Yeah, it would be me, wouldn't it? So a couple of the last questions really sort of bring it all together. How are we going to create a solution at scale? And it's a real, it's a sort of $1 million question, $1 billion question, I guess.
James, do you want to take that one first?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think it's if you look around, there's lots of initiatives happening already. There's lots of challenges as well with actually bringing scale to solve some of these problems. There's lots of discussions around sustainable single use reuse models, etc., and very well documented. I think we need all of them. I think we need a joined up approach, but I think the main thing, I think, or the key word, I think, is probably collaboration in terms of how we achieve it, because there's lots of I mentioned briefly associations as an example. So people may be familiar with things like ECMA, FEFCO, PPC. In the packaging space, there's a whole host of associations then that work with the chemical industry, and a whole host of associations that perhaps represent brands like RAP, and all these other organizations. And I think collaboration and actually some joined up approaches between all these things, for one, I mean, it's got to be a consistent message of how we take this to the key legislators and so we get sensible legislation, and we get time for actually companies as well to develop scale and to find and innovate alternatives. And then obviously we need new innovators and new technologies to come in and to help replace existing things. I think nature's solved most of our problems in life with natural polymers, natural materials, and I think looking more to nature as a solution through waste, taking carbon from a different point in its life cycle. The irony of oil being millions of years of degraded biomaterials, and actually I think we can be more smart about how we do that. So take it from a different point in its life cycle. If it's food waste, for example, there's another big area where we can plug into and look to find solutions. So yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing to address, but that's just some thoughts from me on how some of the challenges and things that we could look at more in the future.
I think I'll take that nice setup, James, around natural materials to say that the real challenge and the role for companies like Xampla that are innovating in this space, I think, is about making that scalability easy and working as much as we can on the compatibility. So although there is a lot of really clever biochemistry and protein science that goes on behind the scenes to make Morro materials, a big achievement of the company has been to generate a process for manufacture which is a lot more like industrial cooking than it is complex chemistry, and actually doesn't require proprietary equipment and already runs on the kind of equipment that a lot of existing chemical manufacturers have. And as I said, that drop-in attitude has to run down the whole supply chain. So to make sure that you can make the films, you can make the coatings with the same kind of equipment and setup that's already been installed. And I think just the last part, which James touched on a little bit earlier, is about finding ways to harness the real enthusiasm that exists at that sort of B2C end and make sure that's driven through the whole supply chain, rather than finding solutions that maybe work for a small product launch or a bit of PR, but actually won't translate into the big kinds of material shifts that really we're focused on at Xampla.
Excellent. Well, Stan and James, thank you very much for your time. That absolutely whizzed by. And please stay online for the Q&A, which will be coming shortly. So thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Okay, without further ado, let's look at some more packaging innovations from the innovation zone based around plastic reduction packaging. So next up is Chlorane, who have worked with Albea Tubes to come up with some new packaging for their baby care product, moisturizing cream. The brand has chosen Albea Tubes paper tube in its brown version, which integrates at least 50% FSC certified paper. I mean, this is a plastic and paper solution combined. Combined with the Albea Tubes Eco-Fusion top, the fusion of head and cap create further weight reduction. So this tube reduces by 74% the amount of virgin plastic used. They claim that the packaging is technically recyclable in the used beverage carton stream, but I would be interested to see to be perfectly honest, what the recycling rates are for that particular solution. Next up is we go to Finland, and we have Morro working with Ravema, who have collaborated to bring to market a new paper-based confectionery pack. What makes this slightly different, and we've seen lots of sort of paper packs in this area in recent times, is that it has a Euro slot to enable the packs to be hung in store on metal hooks. Until now, these packs have always been made of plastic because paper versions have not been able to sustain the weight, resulting in the pouches dropping to the supermarket floor. Walker's idea was to apply an extra strip on the area above the Euro hole, and the double layer strip is invisible to consumers but works as a safety belt for the paper pouch. Graphic Packaging International has collaborated with Piccadilly to develop further a novel range of plastic-free paper board lids for its salad bowls. We did report on this about 6 months ago, but this is a slightly new iteration of this solution. These new lids are recyclable within household paper waste streams and are crafted from renewable plant-based fibres sourced from sustainably managed forests. Notably, they now feature a secure snap closure system that outperforms the previous solution, which I just mentioned, to enhance functionality. We now go to Sweden, Coop Sweden, and they've committed to a sustainable pack for their Anglermark 500-gram pasta across a range of different varieties. The shift is in line with other changes in the market and is expected to save more than 300 tons of plastic annually. Additionally, the plastic window in some of the potatoes packaging will be phased out, saving 1.5 tons of plastic each year. So Coop Sweden's long-term vision includes eliminating sticky labels and directly printing information on the bags. Rypax is a manufacturer of moulded fibre packaging based in California, and the company has been using Scottish company's Cellucomp's proprietary microfibrillated cellulose product known as Curano to produce a moulded fibre bottle that they say is ready for industrial production. The companies have developed a moulded fibre bottle made from bagasse and bamboo. The fibre provides extra structural strength, and importantly, it also allows the inner surface to be optimized for the application of a coating. A thin, impermeable coating specifically developed by Cellucomp called Reef is included in this pack solution. Just conscious of time, we've got 5 minutes. This initiative has created, when I posted it on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, created the most interest of any post I've ever created, and anyone that knows me knows that I post quite a lot on LinkedIn. 200,000 impressions, 2,000 likes and comments, absolutely really captured the imagination. To be fair, 2 or 3 other people I noticed posting this on LinkedIn also had a big reaction. So this is Danone, and they've announced that it is removing the PET labels from its Actimel drinks to facilitate bottle recycling and reduce the use of plastic. The company started removing PET labels from its 100-gram bottles in August. The brand name, vitamins, and allergens are now engraved directly by embossing on the small white bottle supplied by Graham Packaging. The bottles made of HDPE are therefore fully recyclable. This elimination also makes it possible to reduce the quantity of plastic used by 107 tonnes per year, or the equivalent of more than 270 million bottles. The amount of plastic used in Actimel has already been reduced by 40% since its launch in 1994, just reflecting just how much lightweighting has gone on over the years. Without its PET label, the small bottle becomes 95% recyclable, as the lid on which the flavour is now indicated is non-recyclable. So a really standout innovation from the Danone team there, in my opinion. Here we have a Finnish chocolatiers called Kultasukla, sorry for that pronunciation, and they've chosen board for the packaging of their truffles. Chocolates are traditionally packaged individually in plastic wrappers or plastic trays, but in this case, they've developed incorporated with Metsä Board's Prime FBBB EB solution. The barrier board is suitable for direct contact with food, and it's manufactured at the company's Cairo factory. Now we'll turn to Apple, and their packaging is often considered best in class in terms of unboxing and sort of sharing on social media and whatever, but it still needs to undergo the rigors of sustainability. And so Apple has made a commitment to achieve carbon neutrality for every product it produces by 2030. So for their Apple Watch, they will be producing a 100% fiber-based pack. The switch to this packaging for Apple Watches marks a step towards reducing the reliance on traditional materials like plastics. The transition to fiber-based packaging also extends to other packaging for every iPhone 15 model, with over 99% of the material being fiber-based. Our third Mondi solution today, and this is a standout innovation for the collation of multi-pack beverage bottles, and they've worked with Coca-Cola Austria for this solution. This is a replacement for the conventional plastic shrink packaging of 1.5 litre multi-packs with carbonated soft drinks, and fixes them reliably. Mondi's Hug It solution holds 6 bottles together, as you can see, during transport, and consists of Mondi's Advantage Spring Pack Plus, which has been apparently named as the strongest paper in the world by the Guinness World Records. The Hug It band has high tensile strength and unparalleled stretchability. Last innovation before we take some questions is from Freeze. They are suppliers of insulated packaging based in Scotland. The company offers 3 curbside recyclable insulated boxes, which are significantly reduced in plastic use. They are temperature-safe transits of goods for up to 48 hours. They're curbside recycled boxes, and they're all paper-based, offering a sustainable alternative to plastics. The company's newest product, which we can see here, is Curb Core Box, constructed from corrugated cardboard and a pair of paper liners creating a cushioned insulation chamber. Another of their offerings is Ecotech, which is a fully corrugated solution, which is also curbside recyclable. Right, 5-2. We've got 5 minutes for some questions. I'm going to go back on video, and if James and Stan can do the same and come off mute. So I'm seeing these questions for the first time, because obviously I've been presenting and talking for the last hour. So first question is, what is the drive behind the paper wrap conversion from film? Does UK not have film recycling? So I think that's a question for me. There is some film recycling in the UK, and we've got supermarket collection, but it's less than ideal. It's not convenient, and I guess the view is to make products paper-based so that they can be curbside recycled. Another question. Someone is interested in learning about the barrier properties of the Morro material, and if it might be suitable for liquid nutrition products with a minimum 12-year shelf life. Stan, can you ever go at that one?
Yep.
Over to you, Stan. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear, Paul. So depending on the application, Morro materials can have quite different properties. So for example, the films are soluble materials. They're very similar to polyvinyl alcohol in terms of barrier and functionality. So they are not really suitable for containing liquid products. They're very good at barrier for grease or for oxygen. And that's really what they're for. And with a well-formulated product, which I think goes to the last question that was just asked by David, with something that's already optimized for a material like PVOH, you can expect very similar kind of performance and shelf life. The barrier functionality for things like the coatings is a bit different, because they are not designed to be self-sustaining films. They're not intended to be soluble. They also bring across things like water and moisture vapor barrier. And again, the product shelf life is a complex question. It's about the substrate, it's about the cargo inside. But yes, in most applications, we target equivalence with what we're replacing.
Excellent. Yeah, so that question for David was, what are the barrier properties and shelf life of the liquid samples shown? So yeah, brilliant. do the materials need to be polymerized in order to create the material that you are producing, like PLA would be? Is it still plastic, even though it is purely a plant derivative?
So it's a really important question, and one we get a lot, and it's very important that we're clear that there is no polymerization. So part of remaining as a natural polymer is that at no step is there any chemical modification of the plant proteins we use. And that means there's no polymerization, there's no cross-linking, there's no intentional hydrolysis, there's no functional group modification. So although they can look really unusual, Morro materials fundamentally are exactly the plant protein that you produce them from. And for example, the edible films can look a bit like plastic in application, but they are pea protein fundamentally.
Okay, and we've got Claude has asked 3 or 4 questions. I'll pick one, which is, can it be applied to paper, carton boards through flexo printing, such as water-based or UV coatings?
Yep, so the base coating is a water-based dispersion. We also have other forms and other components, such as one in ethanol, and we work very hard to apply it with things like Flexoprint, gravure, and roller coat primarily.
Excellent. We're just about up against time now, so what we'll do is make sure we get every question listed, and as part of the outputs, we'll get Stan and James to answer them, so that you've got full disclosure of all the answers for the questions for that. So thank you very much, Stan and James, for that.
Been a pleasure. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Thank you. We are nearly at the end, so thank you all very much for your time. Just to say that we'll be back next month, and our next webinar will be Sustainable Packaging Innovations on 4 weeks today at 3 p.m. UK time. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will be sending out a recording of this video, plus an opportunity to connect with Stan and James. And as I said, we'll summarise the answers to the questions that we received during this webinar. So thank you all very much for your attendance and your attention, and I look forward to seeing you at a future webinar soon.